Hi, and welcome to Berry Aftercare. I don't know about you, but I know that I feel very excited about this series I'm doing on communication skills because I am so aware that one of the biggest problems on the planet, seriously, I believe that this is that people don't know how to communicate. We talk all the time, and yet we don't know how to communicate very well. And so, this communication series, I think, is critical in our becoming our healthiest adults that we can be, but also because communication is very, very linked to your weight, believe it or not. And we're going to continue to talk about how that plays out. And a lot of it has to do with emotional eating. Because in our interactions with people, which most of them involve communication, we struggle, right? Especially if we don't want to share what we really think, if we have a lot of fear about being our authentic selves, if we've been afraid to share our genuine thoughts, feelings, observations, whatever with people, then we end up feeling upset, like maybe we hurt somebody's feelings and then we eat because we're upset. Or we feel angry because we were railroaded by other people and then we eat because we're upset. And I think if you make the connection in your daily life by paying some attention to this, figure out how often your emotional eating or your eating is in response to feeling unhappy about some kind of interaction between you and another person or the overall tone of your relationship. So that's not a very good introduction, but that is what we're talking about because this is big in your weight loss journey. And today we're going to talk about more assertive communication skills. Remember, we want to be assertive communicators, and so many people are so frightened by being genuine with their thoughts, feelings, and observations that they hold back and end up feeling badly. But the more assertive you can be, assertive isn't about conflict, it's about honesty and mutual respect. So it's not about, oh my gosh, I'm worried about conflict. It's just saying what you think and being courageous enough to do so with the support and help of others and learning the skills. So last week we talked about I statements. That is one example of an assertive communication skill. Today we're going to be talking about sharing thoughts, feelings, and observations. Now you would think this would be a pretty simple topic, but let me tell you, what I have learned through doing a lot of my retreats with patients is this trips people up more than almost anything. And it's funny because we do a lot of role playing and we think we're communicating in an appropriate, direct, straightforward way. We think we're sharing our feelings, and yet we're not. So you'll see how that plays out. I've got a funny story to tell you about my early days as a person who learned to share her thoughts, feelings, and observations. But let me give you the highlights for today. We're going to talk about thoughts, feelings, and observations, what they are, and we'll talk mostly about feelings because they are the ones that trip people up the most. We talked about sharing our thoughts in the last couple of videos because thoughts are I statements, I think, and feelings actually are I feel. All right, so we're going to share thoughts. We're going to talk about sharing feelings. Here's the trick. When we try to share feelings, we need to use feeling words, and people mess it up. Spoiler alert, they mess it up by saying, I feel like. You have not shared your feelings in that case. You are sharing your thoughts. I feel sad. I feel scared. I feel excited. I feel worried. Those are feeling words. Stick with me. All right. And then we're going to talk about sharing observations. And what does that have to do with healthy living, healthy eating, being your very best self? Stick with me. You'll see. All right. I'm going to tell you this funny story. Therapy, 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 therapy. I went to years and years and years of therapy in my early 30s. And so I am becoming empowered. I am learning to use I statements. I am learning that it empowers me. It makes me feel good about myself to share what I think, to share honestly how I feel, to share what I observe going on with other people. So, when you're doing something, at least in the case of myself and a lot of other people who I went through treatment with, and it's the same like with weight loss surgery a lot of times. When you're new into it and you're doing all the things that you were taught during the pre-surgical stuff and you're really feeling this and you feel like you can go out and you can tell everybody how this is done, right? Because you're living this, you're feeling powerful, you're feeling good about yourself, and you're learning all these new things and you want to share them with other people. And it's great and it's wonderful. But what happens is sometimes we go a little overboard before we come back to the middle. So if you come from a place of being very fearful about sharing your honest thoughts, how you feel, what you see going on, these are my opinions, these are my observations. If you come from a place of not doing that out of fear of retaliation or fear of being shamed or fear of being criticized or fear of being slapped from here to next Tuesday, and then all of a sudden you're in some kind of a therapy program or you read these things or you learn these things and you're like, you know what? Yeah, by golly, I have a right to share how I think. Yeah, I have a right to share how I feel. Yeah, I have a right to point out what I think you're doing. Well, I went from one end of the spectrum to the other. First, I didn't share anything, and then I was going to make my mark in the world. So I'm going through this therapy. I've probably been in therapy about a year and a half now, and I'm learning all this stuff. And I was looking for a new job because the job that I had, which was in sales, was a huge part of my problem. My problems, plural, being no no self-worth, right? I had very poor self-worth. And when I was in sales, I would work my tail end off so I could see my name at the top of the sales charts because then I thought I had value. Then I thought I had some worth. It was a compensation because I really didn't feel very good about myself. And that was the only way that I thought I could feel some value. Very sad, very sad. But I learned in my therapy that I didn't need to prove myself in that way, that I had value regardless if I was the top performer or not. Also, the people that I was in the sales career with were my drinking buddies. Well, I had just gone through treatment, and having drinking buddies is not a good thing to have right after you've gone through treatment. So, because, and I've shared this with you before, because my husband and I so desperately wanted a new life, we wanted a healthier life, we wanted to build our relationship closer and learn how to be good partners. Neither one of us had very good examples from our own parents. We wanted to be good parents. We wanted to learn everything we could. So we were doing all the therapy we could. And part of the deal was I quit my job because it was not a healthy part of my life. And part of that quitting my job meant we sold our house because we could no longer afford our house. We bought a different house and now I'm applying for other jobs. Well, I applied for a job at a local college. It was a private college, and it was kind of a hoity-toity kind of college. And my job, and I was young, so I wasn't too old for the job, which I would be now, but the job was going to high schools and sort of recruiting students to come to this prestigious private college. And so I got an interview for the job, and I had a good sales background, right? And this interview process went on for, I'm not kidding you, weeks and weeks and weeks. So I would go up for an interview and then they'd say, okay, we'll get back to you. And then it'd be 2 weeks. And of course, I'd follow through with my thank you and, what's going on. And so then I'd come in and I'd meet with two or three other people. And this happened like 4 times. I'm serious. And we were getting ready to go on a family vacation. It was the first time we'd taken our kids to Disney World. And I was like, I'd like to have this thing wrapped up. I didn't tell them this, but I was like, I'd like to know I have a job to come back to. And so I can start and so we can get our finances back in order and, get on with this new life I'm creating. So it took forever. And it wasn't resolved by the time we went on our trip and we came back. And so finally I got a letter from them saying I was not hired for the job. And so I contacted them to find out, get some feedback. And the feedback I got was the name of the college was Briarcliff. And what they told me was they didn't think I was a, in quotes, I'm doing this, Briar Cliffer. I'm not really a Briar Cliffer. And I was like, what the heck does that mean? So I was not real happy with the drawn out process of this. And keep in mind, I was just learning to share my thoughts, my feelings, and my observations. And so what I did was I shared those thoughts. I shared those feelings and I shared my observations of their interview process in like a 6-page letter. Okay, so I'm all proud of myself. I'm like, I'm sharing my thoughts, I'm sharing my feelings, I'm sharing my observations, blah 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 blah. So I send my 6-page letter to the top interviewer. Well, I get a phone call from the guy, and I could tell he was somewhat humored. And he said, "Connie, I understand you'd like some feedback about why you didn't get this job. I got your letter." And I said, "Yes, I would." And he said, "Would you like to go to lunch?" Yes, I would. Now I was scared S-less. I was terrified, but I'm like, I'm an adult. I'm going to go do my adulting thing. And I'm going to go have an adult lunch with this person. So we met, and he was very, very kind. He was probably in his mid to late 50s, and I'm this 30-year-old coming into my own right. And he was so sweet. And he said, "Listen, you've got great skills. You know, you're going to do something good in your life and blah, blah, blah. And I'd be happy to give you a referral or a good reference anywhere." He said, "But I would suggest that you never write a letter like this to an employer ever, ever, ever again." The message was, "Girlfriend, you with your brand new skills of learning to share your thoughts, your feelings, and your observations really railroaded this situation, and this is not a good thing to do." Like, I came across way too strong. And he was very kind and very sweet. And when I look back on it, I can see how he would be very humored because, I didn't just share my thoughts, feelings, and observations. I shared everything. So it was a good experience, though. And a lot of times, what we have to do is go from one end of the spectrum to the other before we find our way to the middle, because sometimes you can say too much, right? So today we're going to talk about the assertive communication skills of sharing your thoughts, your feelings, and your observations, and what that actually looks like in a few sentences and not a 6-page letter. All right. And we're going to talk about how people butcher this, okay? All right. So let's talk about sharing your thoughts using assertive communication and I statements, because we're going to be appropriate, respectful. We're going to have good tone of voice, all those things that is assertive communication. So for example, we're sharing thoughts, right? So that would kind of come like, I think this, right? Because I'm sharing my thoughts. So in a meeting, I might say, I think that idea is helpful. Now, let's say I didn't think it was. I think that idea has some merit. Or I think we could use that idea and maybe tweak it a little bit. Or maybe I could say, I think that idea has some great points as well as some holes in the foundation. I think you might have some concerns about my decisions. Are there any questions I can answer for you? So, in other words, I am saying, I think this. These are my thoughts, but I'm doing it in a respectful way. I'm not saying, I think your idea sucks. I think your idea has some good points. I think we could also maybe add this. How would you feel about, right? So I'm being respectful. I'm being honest. I think there are some ideas worth merit here, and I think it might benefit if we did this. Or maybe I present something and I'm reading the room and I'm like, I think maybe you have some concerns about my decision. Are there any questions that I could answer for you? I think you have this. I might be wrong, right? But this is what I'm thinking. Now, there are a lot of ways you can say I think without actually saying I think, because if you're constantly saying, well, I think, well, I think, well, I think, well, I think, here's some other ways you could say it. To me, it would make more sense if maybe we did this rather than saying, I could say, I think that's a really stupid idea. To me, it seems like if we did this, this, and this, it might work better. I'm not saying it will. I'm not being demanding. I'm not saying it's my way or the highway. So it's a subtle art, but it is an art and it is a skill and it is polite and it does take more effort, but it's worth it because you're going to, as the old saying goes, you're going to get more honey. No, you're going to get more flies with honey. I don't know how it goes, but you're going to get further if you use appropriate language and if you're kinder and if you're softer rather than saying, this is how we're going to do it. And that's the end of the story. All right. So I think blah, blah, blah. To me, it would seem blah, 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 blah. In my opinion, that idea would work better if do, 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 do. So I'm kind of saying, I don't think that's a really great idea, but I'm saying this is my opinion. In my opinion, that idea might not be the right way to go in this case. If you ask me, I would say that this is a really great idea. I might add, do you see the difference? Do you see how subtle and thoughtful and I'm basically saying these are my thoughts. The way I see this is if so and so did such and such, then we could implement this over there the way I see things. As far as I can tell, when we've tried that in the past, here's what worked and here's what didn't. It seems to me that if we took Jim's idea and Susan's idea and put them together, we could probably come up with a really well-rounded plan. From my point of view, and in the experience I've had over the last several years, that particular thing has worked really well with this population. So I'm saying I think in lots of different ways. I think is better than you have no idea what you're talking about. You've never done this before. You have no experience in this arena. Your ideas have no legs to walk on. You have no business putting your 2 cents in here. You've never done anything like this before. You can soften that and be honest. I think that would work better in another environment. In my opinion, this might be worth trying. If you ask me, that part of the plan isn't going to work in this environment. So you're sharing your thoughts. You can be honest and you got to practice this. You might take one sentence like, let's say, I think your decision to have bariatric surgery is great. All right. To me, this would be a wonderful tool for you to get that extra weight off. In my opinion, this is a great idea. You've done all of these other things before, so I think this surgery would be a wonderful thing. If you ask me, which you just did, then I'm going to tell you I think this is a great idea. The way I see things is you've tried so many other options in the past. I'm glad you've come to this conclusion. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. I'm supportive of you with this decision, but it's your decision to make, regardless of what anybody else thinks. It seems to me that you've given this a lot of thought, and if this is what you have decided to do, I support your decision. So there you go. You can use that. Now, let's say it's a situation where somebody is saying, I don't think you can even tell that you've had weight loss surgery. And now you're mad, right? You know what? To me, I'm aware, I know that I had the surgery, and I know that this can take a while for the weight to come off. In my opinion, this surgery has done me a lot of good. My blood pressure is lower and I feel more energy. If you ask me, the surgery was worth it, even though I've only lost half as much weight as you think I was going to, because I feel so much better. The way I see things is this surgery has given me the opportunity to learn skills so that I can continue to lose weight. As far as I'm concerned, this was the best option for me, given my health options and giving my health problems. It seems to me that if I didn't do this surgery, I wouldn't have lost any weight. And this amount of weight loss has given me a lot of improvements in my health. See how that can work? I'm saying this is what I think without putting the other person down, being respectful, having taken into account what they've said. So you can work on sharing your thoughts in those different ways. Now, what's important about doing that, honestly, is because when you don't share your honest thoughts, you know how you feel. You either feel like nobody takes you seriously, but you're doing this yourself, or you feel like you might be scared, but as an adult, you want to say what you think anyway. So feel the fear, do it anyway. Because if you don't, you're either going to beat yourself up with words and then with food, or you're going to be angry at the other person, and then you might emotionally eat because you're angry with the other person. So part of this journey, the bariatric journey, is learning to be a healthy adult, because healthy adults are going to be much better to keep their weight off and to not regain. And that's just the truth. Not that that's the only thing, because I understand there are so many biological things. It's not that you're going to It's not that learning just to be a healthy adult is going to solve all the complexities of your weight. I understand that. But to the degree that you sabotage yourself with unhealthy eating, being your best healthy adult can help that part of this journey. So being honest with what you think, using these assertive skills, will absolutely help you prevent emotional eating. All right, let's talk about this sharing your feelings, because this is where people really, really struggle. Sharing your feelings using assertive communication and I statements. So I'm going to give you an I feel, and then I'm going to give you a whole bunch of emotion and a whole bunch of feeling words, right? I feel excited. I feel grateful. I feel sad. I feel worried. I feel scared. I feel angry. I feel discounted. I feel criticized. I feel judged. I feel important. I feel valued. I feel appreciated. I'm feeling defensive. I'm feeling anxious. In other words, when the words I feel come out of your mouth, then you want to use a feeling word. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Because when you say I feel like, you are no longer sharing your feelings. Let me just let that sink in a minute. And here's how people mess this up. They say, I feel like you're a jerk. I feel like you are sabotaging me. I feel like you have no idea what you're talking about. We are not sharing feelings there, my friends, and we've just turned that into a disguised you statement, where again, I'm shaming, I'm blaming, I'm criticizing. You can do it with the thoughts too. I think you're a jerk. I think you don't have any idea what you're talking about. I think you've lost your mind. I think you're bat ass crazy. I think you're. That's not the goal here, and that is not assertive statements. Those are not healthy I statements. Healthy I statements, I think, and then say what you think. I feel, and then share how you feel. So this is an exercise to look inward at yourself. Happiness comes from within, and so does healthy communication. I think that's a great idea. I think bariatric surgery is the way for me to go. I think I would like your support. I feel grateful that you're willing to support me. See that? I feel grateful, feeling word. And it's so funny because when we go around the group and we say this repeatedly, but not until you attempt to do it on your own, do you hear yourself saying, I feel like. And this is how people take this beautiful, beautiful skill of I statements, of learning to be a healthy adult with healthy communication skills and blow it. So if somebody says, I think you're rude, I think you are uninformed, I think you are clueless. You get it, I hope. Please tell me you get it. I'm going back to a you statement disguised with the word I in front of it. Not healthy, not okay, not gonna work. All right? I feel like. No, 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 no. Download a list of feeling words. If you don't have a good feeling word vocabulary inside of you, if you don't know how you feel, which is pretty common for many of us, many people don't know how they feel. They're not aware of how they feel. So go to your search engine and search list of feeling words, and you will get a page with hundreds of feeling words. And then look over it. When I used to do group therapy, people look at their feeling sheet and go, oh, yeah, I'm feeling annoyed. Oh, yeah, I'm feeling distressed. Oh, yeah, I'm feeling excited. Oh, I'm feeling exuberant. And they would pick out these words because they had to connect how they were feeling emotionally with a word that described it. All right. Now let's talk about observations. Observations are what we witness, what we see, what's going on here. I found this great little article about observations versus judgments. So listen to this and see if you pick up on the language here. Had a little poem at the beginning. Apple is red, sky is blue. This is an observation. I hope you noticed it too. I like apples. They're the best. This is a judgment. No, this wasn't a test. So a lot of times, we will say we're observing something, but we're really judging. So for example, Steve, that's my husband. Steve, I see you talking on the phone. That's an observation, right? I see you talking on the phone. Steve, who is it you're talking on the phone with? Because of my voice, my inflection, it was sort of a criticism or an accusation, right? It was not an observation. So people cheat with this too. I'm just telling you what I see. No, just telling you what you see has no judgment attached to it. Apple is red. That's an observation. Apples are the best is a judgment. We always think of judgment as a bad thing, but I'm judging the apples as being the best there are, best fruit ever. That's a judgment, an opinion, right? So if you're going to observe something, I saw you talking on the phone. I was feeling worried, wondering who you might be talking to. Now I'm owning my own insecurity, right? Or I saw you talking to the tall blonde with the big boobs. That's an observation, right? I felt insecure. That's about me. Okay? Understanding the difference is really critical to getting across what you want to do. If you're trying to have a healthy discussion with somebody, you want to give them observations, not judgments. You don't want to be accusing. What were you talking to the tall blonde with big boobs about? That's judgmental, right? I saw you talking to that woman. I felt insecure. Would you mind telling me what that was about? Very appropriate. There's such a subtle difference. And one form of discussion is going to hopefully open the door to a healthy discussion. The other is going to lead to somebody feeling accused, angry, judged, whatever it might be, right? So we often imply a judgment about an observation. All right. The weather is sunny. Observation. The weather's great, or the weather really sucks. That's a judgment. All right. So an observation is noticing what is. This is what I saw, right? I saw it, I heard it, I felt it, I saw it. But a judgment is comparing what is to what should be, in my opinion, or putting a label of good or bad on it, right? So seeing somebody talk to a beautiful woman, it's just an observation. You were talking to well, actually, the beautiful word is a judgment, right? I saw you talking to a woman. That's an observation. The beautiful part would be assigning a judgment to it, right? Because I'm saying she's beautiful. She might not be beautiful to somebody else. I saw you talking to that woman. Observation. I saw you talking to that beautiful woman. Now that implies, just through my tone of voice and the label I put on here, without my being honest about it. I saw you talking to that woman and I felt insecure. That's what we want to go for. The observation and what was happening with me. I saw you talking to that woman and my insecurity led me to wonder if you were flirting with her. Now I'm not accusing. I'm saying what was going on with me. All right? So, people can turn that around also. So, it seems to me that if you're going to be talking to beautiful women, I put all kinds of judgment in there, right? Now, I'm going to teach you what is pretty much a fail proof sentence stem. And then I'm going to give you a worksheet to work on. Because this stuff, even though it sounds kind of simple, it's not easy when you come right down to doing it. But I'm going to give you a sentence stem. And I first saw this, actually, it was from like a young child brought it home from school and it was on my friend's refrigerator. I'm like, that's cool. We use that at school, my PhD program school, as a communication skill. And they were teaching it to these young kids and it was adorable. All right, so here's how it goes. And then I'm going to give you several examples. And then in the second video this week, we will work through the examples, have lots of practice. All right, so, and I would encourage you to make yourself a piece of paper that says when, and then draw a blank line to be filled in. When blank, I feel or I felt blank because, and another blank, what I would appreciate, another blank. So let me give you an example. Let's see. You've had weight loss surgery, let's say, and your boyfriend or girlfriend is jealous because you're doing a lot of things with other people and they're feeling left behind, right? You guys used to sit home and watch movies. Now you're out socializing and doing all these things and they're feeling left out. All right. When you go out with your friends, I feel insignificant. All right. So I'm pointing out when you go out with your friends. So that's what is going on. I feel insignificant because I would like to do things with you also. I would appreciate if we could spend more time together or have a date night. Beautifully stated, right? When blank, when you go out with your friends, I feel insignificant. Why? because I want to do things with you too. What I would like or what I would appreciate is if we could have a date night every week. Beautiful. Now, let me turn this into some things at the office or with your kids. With your kids, when you come home and you throw your backpack on the floor, I feel angry because I've spent the day cleaning the house. I would appreciate if you would put your backpack on the hook in the hall right by the front door. All right? What we typically do is, what are you doing dropping that backpack? Get down here and pick that thing up. I've told you 1,000 times. Now, the kid might have the same response regardless of how you say it. However, you are responsible for what you put out there in the world. Or let's say that you and your partner have divided up the duties around the house, the dishes, the laundry, the whatever. And your partner says their job is to unload the dishwasher and they haven't done it. Honey, when you don't unload the dishwasher, I feel annoyed because I can't do my job, which is to load the dishwasher with the dirty dishes if you haven't unloaded it. I would appreciate if you could make it a point to unload it soon after it's finished. Right? Again, beautifully stated. Rather, do I have to tell you to unload this dishwasher one more time? I am so, right? And that's what we typically do. So if we want to get better cooperation, then we need to be more appropriate. We need to be more appropriate either way because we want to be healthy adults who feel good about ourselves so we don't end up emotionally eating because we barked at the family all day and then we feel bad. Makes sense? Makes sense to me. All right, so I'm going to do one more example of this, and then you're going to need a lot of practice. So like I said, I'll put out a worksheet, then we'll follow up with the worksheet, and then please make it a fun thing. Get your girlfriends together, get your guy friends, get your couples friends together. You can have really great fights that way. But you can practice these things because this is really, really important. Honey, when you bring home XYZ food that is a trigger for me, I feel sad because when we made the decision that I would have this surgery, you agreed to support me by keeping these things out of the house. I would appreciate if you would go ahead and take these out where I can't see them. Versus, why are you doing this? You are just trying to sabotage me. You don't care about me, right? So I want you to become very familiar and listen to yourself when you're talking. Are you being appropriate with your tone? Are you using I statements? I think, I feel, I am observing this. I would like, I would appreciate, it would mean a lot to me. You can also do this in a positive way. Honey, when you ask me to go out to dinner and you have picked a place where you know I can safely eat, I feel so appreciative because it lets me know that you're thinking about me. And I want you to know I appreciate you. Make sense? Or to the kid, honey, when you hang your backpack up, when you walk in the door, I feel so happy because because it helps keep the house clean and I appreciate your efforts, right? So you can use this in positive ways as well. So again, let's talk about the top 3 take-home messages. This is a hot topic. I promise you it is. And it's really critical in your weight loss journey. If you don't see it now, you will. I promise you will. So sharing your honest thoughts, your honest feelings, your observations requires a healthy self-esteem because assertive communication is born of healthy self-esteem. So if we're not using this, then we have to say to ourselves, what does this say about me? Because this is research saying this, not Connie. Research says that assertive communication comes from a place of having healthy self-esteem. I don't need to win. I don't need to put you down. I don't need to embarrass you. I don't need to criticize you. I don't need to shame you. I respect you. I love you. I care about you. And so I'm going to talk to you in such a way that makes that evident. I feel good about me, and I want to communicate in a way that is appropriate and respectful because I feel good about me and I want to keep feeling good about me. All right. So if you're struggling in the self-worth department, in the self-esteem department, then get some therapy. Also, take the risk to just try some of these assertive communication skills. I statements. I think, I feel, I'm seeing. Good way to build your self-esteem because when you do it, you can feel proud of yourself and go, you know what, I can do this. And look at there, I got a better result. When you share feelings, use feeling words. And then stick to observations and be careful of judgment. And lastly, remember, just because you engage in these healthy communication skills, other people may or may not. But you keep with it because this is your health, it's your life, it's your journey this day and every day. And I want and you want us to be our best selves. It helps in the weight loss journey and maintaining that healthy weight. When we feel better, we act better toward ourselves. All right, guys, see you next time.